Welcome in to another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson, and we are joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how you doing?
Doing good, doing warm.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't live in Minnesota, well, you probably live in America, and you know that it's an absolute. It's pretty hot right now in the Midwest. And Jared, how we doing?
Yeah, warm about describes it, but I'm doing good. I'm kind of excited for a little bit of a free flow podcast, something that we don't normally do here. So this one might be a little bit fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just get right into it. The NBA playoffs going on right now. When we're recording this, it's just starting the second round, although some series have gone to the second game in the series. So let's just get our initial thoughts. Let's start with you, Chris. What has been your initial takeaway from these playoffs so far, or what do you want to start with?
I mean, I'd say it was surprising to me to see. It's surprising, but maybe it shouldn't be. But to see the Lakers falter so easily, but then just like we've been saying all year, as Timberwolves fans, when you don't have a max player healthy, you're dead. Like your team is trash, just like Golden State was last year, just like we were without Cat or without D'Lo, and just like when you lose, Anthony Davis, you don't have that. That's the beauty of a salary cap sport. Like you can't be like the Yankees and lose a top pitcher and just roll out another Cy Young guy. Like if you lose Anthony Davis, you're going to get trounced, because you just don't have the talent to make that up unless you've built a team with young cheap contracts, luckily, or something. So it was surprising to see them go out, but even before that, just how kind of mediocre they're playing. A lot of it probably because they haven't had much time, but so that was it. I'm happy to see Denver playing well, even though Jamal Murray's out. Huge Denver fan. And I mean, Jamal Murray's a bona fide stud, and I really wish they could have been fully healthy. I think it would have really changed the way the playoffs are looking. I was happy to see John Morant. John Morant, to me, is pretty hot and cold. Like sometimes he's unstoppable and sometimes he's not, but he was unstoppable this playoffs, and that was cool. I hope that continues for him. Dallas. I mean, it's been good so far. It's been just good basketball. I like to see the Heat lose. I was happy for that.
Yep.
I like to see the Knicks get trounced. I was happy for that. So yeah, everything's kind of turning up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into some of that stuff deeper, but initial thoughts, Jared, what your initial thoughts on the playoffs so far?
It's kind of going how I would expect it to go outside of the Lakers. The Lakers, the biggest thing for me, and I know I might have mentioned this in some of our previous podcasts, and some of the listeners might recall me saying this, but I said one of the biggest things that was a head scratcher for me with the Lakers was Andre Drummond. Like they went out to get this guy, and he was playing like 19 minutes almost all throughout the 2 months that they had him. Like he never got his minutes ramped up. They never established his role. And I'm not saying that Andre Drummond can be an absolute difference maker in a series, but I think if his role was established more, like this dude got benched for Marc Gasol, who's like 100 years old. Like, and this is going to tie into some of the coaching ties that we talk about later on. And I have a ton of information on that. But outside of that, I expected the Hawks and Knicks series maybe to go to a little bit longer, but I mean, I expected the Hawks to win, so that was no surprise to me. I'm ready to crown the Nets. I was ready to crown them almost before the playoffs started. I had some ties with the Lakers. I just liked the Lakers and their build. But, when you look at the Lakers, like outside of the stars, because everyone's got stars, everyone has stars in the building in the playoffs. Like, are you expecting Dennis Schroeder and Alex Caruso? Like their role players were just they just weren't there, like they would have
no shooters.
They have nobody to shoot the ball. Like unless they shoot 35% from three, they're going to lose games. Like they just don't have the role players on the Lakers team. But in looking at other series, my favorite series was obviously the best series, and it was probably everybody's favorite series, and it was Luka versus the Clippers, and I say that, and I don't just say that to say that like, oh, the rest of the Dallas sucked, but they did. The rest of Dallas absolutely sucked. It was Luka versus Kawhi and Paul George. That was my favorite series. And I have some coaching points in that series to talk about later on. That's going to be a fun thing for me to talk about. Not something that I get to talk about a whole lot doing Wolves podcast, but on a free flow one, it'll be fun to talk about. But yeah, at this point in time, I mean, I'm ready to crown the Nets, and in the West, I think it can get super interesting. I would be very surprised to not see the Clippers represent the West at this point in time, but that Jazz Clippers series is going to be a hell of a lot better than this Denver Suns series, in my opinion.
Okay, interesting. Well, my take is, first of all, Trae Young is amazing. Like it almost harkened back to like some of the stuff that we got from Reggie Miller at MSG. Like, remember when he did the choke thing to Spike Lee, and then you had Trae Young taking a bow after hitting that three? Like, that's the stuff we need in the playoffs. Like, that's the kind of stuff that people will remember. And also, just how about that and Ja Morant? Just great first appearances in the playoffs. Just a great job by them. Also, my other big takeaway from it is look at. So the Timberwolves are kind of like the Suns in a way, where they made the playoffs in 2017, but this is a completely different team. Why not why not have us pull a Suns next year? Why not be like the 2 seed or something? And why not beat the top dog in the first round of the playoffs? Like, I don't know. It's just watching the Sun gives me hope. Like 11 years not making the playoffs, and then they get the right guy, they get a veteran, and then boom, they make it happen. Jared, you had some?
Yeah, you were talking about the Hawks series, and this is one thing that I absolutely loved about that series. Is it almost you could feel the energy in the building, even though the Knicks were getting shat on for the most part. I loved hearing the FU Trae Youngs and then him responding, and like you just love that type of energy in the playoffs. So when it comes to a series like that, do I expect the Hawks to go super deep in the playoffs? I mean, I think they have a chance to beat the Sixers, but I probably take the Sixers in the long run. But I think they're gonna push it far, and I love seeing the real life like 90s feel of the Knicks series, and I love to see that in basketball because you don't get the crowd with COVID going on and stuff. Like we didn't really have a ton of crowds this year, and I just loved seeing the camaraderie between the two teams, even though it didn't go as deep as I would have liked to see.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's almost like we're back to normal in a way, crowd wise. I mean, we're getting like 15,000 there, maybe close to that. And I think as more people start getting the vaccine and whatnot, I think we're going to get even more closer and closer. Like they'll take off you still see like some of the seats covered or whatever, but I think we're getting closer and closer to normal. Like as more people get the vaccine, and yeah. But Chris, go ahead.
I think Dallas is full wide open. I mean, they don't have that bottom part because they just don't want people getting close to the players because of COVID, but I think they're wide open. Just a little speaking of a couple of things, but since you were mentioned taking that tarp off, one thing that I hope this whole bubble and COVID has taught the league, which it's like one of those stupid things that really bothers you that I never feel like anyone else cares about but me, is all of the photographers and stuff on the baseline every year, like when they're right up there and there's like a million of these guys with these big lenses and stuff, and players crash into them and have to like tiptoe around them and stuff. I'm always like, what are they there for? Like, I've never been like, like who cares about that shot? Like with digital photography now, you can zoom in and do whatever the hell you want. Like we don't need guys right on the baseline. And I have not noticed the lack of coverage or the lack of good images from the NBA in the last 2 years. You know, who get rid of that whole area, because what I noticed about in the bubble is guys taking it straight line to the rim super hard, because you can hit your layup and fly back through the standard, come back and run around. Like clear that area out and let these players play. Like I hate where they have to like be careful driving hard because they got to slam on the brakes right away, you know?
Mhm.
And I was talking about this before Paul George broke his leg. Like this is all, I don't know. That's one thing that's been bothering me. But on a good note, the NBA is in such great hands. Like, yes, Chris Paul's on his last legs. Yes, LeBron is starting to look maybe human. Um, but man, we've got so much youth. Like we said, Ja Morant, uh, Luka Doncic is going to be 22 halfway through the year next year. Even Trae Young. Um, even guys like, like we were saying, rookie of the year is going to be announced some. We got Anthony Edwards, but we've got, DeAndre Ayton's playing well. Like, Tatum is a stud, full on stud, dropping 50 whenever he wants. Like, this league, man, it's got to be the healthiest it's ever been right now. You still got the old heads performing like first ballot Hall of Famers, showing what it's all about, and then there's these young kids just trying to get the scraps. Man, it's the NBA is so healthy.
I agree. And even like I was like kind of you were saying, it feels like maybe not every team, but most team has someone like that. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go to a Wolves game. Who are we playing? Oh, I want to see that guy play. I want to see that guy get. And even the teams that don't have that guy right now, you look at the lottery, like you
They're
got Cade,
coming.
yeah, you got Cade Cunningham coming in. You got, which I mean, yes, we've debated in the past like how good is Cade Cunningham, but you got Cade Cunningham, you got I know,
Suggs and Mobley and
yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's fun to be an NBA fan right now. It really is. And, I kind of like this. Me, I'm kind of like a huge LeBron fan. He's my Jordan. But if we're moving out of this LeBron phase, I think like this league can be totally wide open. Like any team, like the Mavericks could make a run, or you see the up and coming Suns. Another guy we didn't mention this league being in good hands. He's a little older, but I mean, Devin Booker. Like, look at what he's doing in his first playoff appearance right now. Like, he's playing out of his mind. Like, he had 47 in the clincher. Like, he's playing great. Chris, you had some?
Yeah, you touched on LeBron, and this is another thing I've been kind of beating my head on. What I want LeBron to do is transfer to power forward. I want to see LeBron at power forward next to Anthony Davis. He'll bring the ball up when he grabs a rebound and goes down the court, but he could extend his career so much longer if he doesn't have to pound the ball every time up and down, and maybe get some elbow touches for passes. But he could easily be the number one power forward in probably or top one or two in the whole NBA. Like, who wants to defend him out on the perimeter as a power forward? And he's big enough to bang with those guys the size that power forwards are now. I mean, he can rebound easily, get 10 a game. Like, I don't I mean, maybe it's a pride thing, but I don't think it would be a bad move to just rotate down there, save your legs. You can still dominate in crunch time if you want. But yeah, LeBron's great, but Father Time's undefeated.
Yeah. But one thing you say Father Time's undefeated, but look at, so Marcus Gasol, like you said, someone earlier said that Marcus Gasol is like ancient, but LeBron and Marcus Gasol are at the same age. Look at what Marcus Gasol's doing right now, and look at what LeBron James is doing right now, carrying a team. I mean,
He's unbelievable. He's a freak,
yeah.
and he does everything right with his body and stuff. Like, I would hate to live his probably lifestyle. I'm sure it's not full of a lot of fun and enjoyment. But he's about that business.
Right. Also, one thing One thing I will say that about LeBron, like, and a lot of times, like you don't know everything about their lives, but when it's all said and done, what is LeBron like? What is bad things has LeBron done in his career?
None.
Like, okay, maybe the decision was not great, but still, I mean, he donated all that money to like kids' charities and stuff.
It was literally in a Boys and Girls Club. It was
Yeah.
literally all the money went to the Boys and Girls Club that was there. And all he did was choose where he was going as a free agent. It's not like he forced his hand out of there. He's not like he was like what Carmelo did or what any of these people did that said demanding a trade to somewhere else. And everyone forgives those people.
Right.
No, I mean, I don't know. I've got a long opinion on why people hate LeBron, but I don't know, that might be for another podcast. I think that was completely engineered by ESPN because they needed a villain. They need a villain to sell. Kobe was on his way out. Durant and Rose at the time were the best two studs, and they're both quiet, reserved superstars. So nobody was really mad at them. So they needed somebody to make a villain. Well, LeBron was their villain. He went down to Miami, and they wanted to make a villain, and they pushed the narrative that he was a bad guy for doing that, and everyone bought on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if you look into it, like, I mean, LeBron's literally like created like schools where kids can like make it to college at a cheaper price and like
No, for free.
For free. Yeah.
He pays for their college, dude. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Like LeBron, such like I saw a picture of LeBron basically with his kids and his wife like in a car all smiling, and it said, "Why do you guys hate on this man?" And I was thinking like, yeah, like who cares if he, and I'm not saying like you guys, but who cares if he has a different political opinion than you? Like, who cares? He's putting kids through college. Like, anyway, yeah, Jared, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you guys are good. So before I move into my scalding hot Booker take, with LeBron, you know, one thing that people like just average people say about him is, oh, you know, he's 4-6 in finals, and all he's done is choke. The one thing I want to say about LeBron James is his exact team from a analytics and an odds perspective. LeBron's supposed to have 3 rings. I've looked at every single series and who was favored in those series. LeBron is supposed to have 3 rings, which is kind of amazing to me because like it just shows how good the league is, like we were saying, you know, previously. And you know, I'm sure one of you guys might want to challenge me on this and go back and look at it because it sounds crazy that LeBron is only supposed to have 3.
No, I know for a fact that's true. And I think Jordan was favored in every single finals except for one, but I think it might have been every single finals. He's not had a great teams. He's went to the finals 10 out of 11 years in a row. That's unbelievable. Like, not only because that's an unbelievable feat, but to play that many games, not to mention the Olympic games that were mixed in there too, but to play that many games and then come back and play that many games again, and that many games again, that's just a wear and tear is unbelievable. Yeah. The dude's unbelievable. But
yeah, and I just want to say one thing, but before we throw back to Jared, that's like you being a 4th grader and LeBron. No. That's like you being a 3rd grader and LeBron makes it to the finals the first time, and then every single year you go to elementary and middle school all the way through 12th grade, he makes the finals every single year.
And a little fun fact, like that people like to forget, not to get into a Jordan versus LeBron debate because that's just stupid to do.
There's no way to win. Yeah.
No. People like to forget the fact that Michael Jordan missed the finals 50% of the times he made the playoffs. Like, he got knocked out of the playoffs the same amount of times that he made it to the finals. That's not the case with LeBron. But like, it's one of those things where like if LeBron would have lost in the first or second round instead of losing in the finals, people would think it would be like a better deal or something. I don't get it. Like,
Mhm.
so like making it to the finals and losing to like a historically great team is a worse thing than if he lost in the second round. Like, come on, man. It's just people being stupid.
This
Yeah.
makes a perfect transition into my Booker thing, because I was
Let's hear
going to say that Booker has the it factor, whether we want to admit it or maybe we just don't notice it yet. Booker's first, I guess, I don't know if you would call it a playoff appearance with the bubble and how they ran things. Technically, it wasn't a playoff appearance, but they went 8-0 in the bubble last year and still didn't make the playoffs. So it was almost like, why were they even there? And then he goes out and he beats LeBron James and Anthony Davis and the Lakers, who were second in line next to the Nets to win the finals this year. Like, maybe this dude just has that it factor, that clutch factor that we just haven't noticed yet. We might be a little early on him yet, but the dude's been good. And like Gabe said, I think he said 47 in the closing game. Like,
Yep.
maybe Booker's just the next guy up that has that it factor, kind of like Jordan did. Like when he got there, he had the it factor. And Booker's been incredible, and I don't think the rest of the league or the average fan has realized it thus far.
Mhm.
And he has like a quiet 47 too. Like, he's one of those guys that you don't really notice in the game, and you look up and he's got 35 in the third or something. You're like, geez, like I didn't even. Yeah, he's a stud, man. He's a stud. He makes it look so easy. I mean, he's like all these young players now, like Luka and like Trae. They're the guys that just can maneuver to their spots, not overly, athletic, not overly huge, not beating you with physicality. They just kind of slither to their spots like D'Lo and just pump in a shot. Slither to their spot, pump in a shot. Move to an open spot, the ball kicks to them, pump it in. Like, yeah, that kind of game doesn't go old, doesn't ages really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing you were kind of talking about Trae a little bit, or you mentioned Trae. What I was watching game one against the Sixers. What I noticed is, first of all, Atlanta's super fun to watch. I noticed that 90% of the time, Trae Young would beat the first guy off the dribble. If the help defender, if he goes up on Trae or comes up on Trae, he just dishes it off to an alley-oop to like John Collins or whatever big is out there. If he backs off a Trae, he just shoots that little floater over the head. Like, he's borderline unstoppable right now.
Basketball doesn't have to be difficult. Like,
right.
You step up, I drop it off. You step back, I take the shot. Like, it's just beautiful, simple basketball. And that's the Hawks are so balanced, and they're so deep, and they're so well put together with Capella, and how Collins is playing solid defense right now, and some of the other guys are playing solid defense, that with Trae Young, like, the elephant in the room with Trae Young is the fact that he is absolutely terrible at defense. Like, but the way that their team is set up, you can't really target him because they've got so many good help defenders to cover that, which will bring me to a point when we talk about what the Timberwolves need to do. But there's ways that you can cover for a guy like Trae Young and let him kind of be lazy on defense, because he's going to be a monster on the other side of the ball.
Mm-hmm. And Jared, you had some? Go ahead.
Yeah, so like, I love that Chris brings up role players, because they get outshined in the playoffs when you look at rosters and you look at star-studded rosters, which are everywhere in the playoffs. But like when I said that the Hawks would take the 76ers to 6 games or more, my reasoning was exactly that. Their role players are so much better than the 76ers, in my opinion. And maybe that's just an opinion. I don't know if it's a fact. I'm not going to just sit there and try and say something without backing it up. But like, they are so deep in the positions that they need to be at. They got Gallinari, who can be a flash in the pan. They got Hunter, they got Bogdanovich, they got Herter, their role players are so much better than the 76ers. And I think that role players get outshined in the playoffs because the stars seem to go and run with it.
Not to mention a number 5 pick that's not even getting any time. Like they've got Okongwu, who they can't even play the guy. They've got Chris Dunn, who I hated him as a draft pick, almost the same as Culver. I probably hated him almost equally. But I mean, as a role player, he's a stud. Like he'll lock you up. I mean, he's been hurt all year, but and then they've got Cam Reddish, who's a good defender, good athletic young wing. Like he's hurt too a little bit, but like they're so deep, man. If they could keep that roster together, who knows?
Yeah, and that's going to be the big thing for them because Trae Young's still on his rookie contract. John Collins, he's on his last year of his rookie contract. So there's going to be some decisions to make, particularly when you're giving a guy like Gallinari, or I think he's making
20.
money. Yeah, 20 a year. So, yeah, there's going to be some decisions to make in Atlanta. So a question, one last thing that we should mention in the playoffs, and I know, Chris, for sure you wanted to address this and maybe put it to bed a little bit. Who would you rather, or ranking first, second, and third, who would you want? Ja, Luka, or who was the third one?
Trae.
Oh, Trae. And we'll start with you, Jared. Who would you, ranking 1 through 3, who would you want? In what order would you put those guys?
You know, this is kind of a tricky question because I also think, well, I'm going to give you my answer first, and then I'm going to tell you why it is that way. But I think it's a trickier question than just my basic answer. My basic answer was kind of popular in our group, but it's Luka, Trae, and Ja. But where it gets goofy is Luka has the highest usage rate of the three, so his numbers get inflated because of the usage rate. And I also think that I'm trying to think of the teams right now. So I would say that Luka has the least amount of surrounding talent. His running mate was Porzingis, who was absolute dog trash in the playoffs. So it kind of inflated his usage rate. Trae, who also carries the second highest usage rate, it would be my second answer. But like, he has role players to work with, so I think that he's gonna get enough balance with his role players to where you don't notice it as much as a guy like Luka, who can drop. You know, like Luka had the best game of his entire career in Game 7, damn near, and he still lost. You know, like he doesn't have the surrounding pieces. And then Ja, I think, is also. I think the Grizzlies have, like, his usage rate gets changed because the pieces around him are just better, opposed to a guy like Luka. But I think Ja is also super talented, and it's a great question. But I would go Luka 1, Trae 2, and then I would put Ja Morant at 3.
Chris, go ahead.
I mean, the best answer is obviously, I'll take any of them. Like, they're all studs. I guess when it comes to me, it comes to size. I mean, Luka being 6'8", 270 or whatever he is, he's a thick boy too. That goes a long ways. I mean, you can do so much more with that size. I mean, it's tough. Like, it's a really tough question. If Ja had a little bit more of a shot that I relied on, although he shot decent this year, but I mean, I just don't trust it. It'd be something. But then, I mean, Trae gets to the line at will. Like, Trae Young will have a bad shooting game and still get you 25 points because he went to the line 16 times and shot 15 to 16. Like, that is so important. And Luka can't shoot free throws for some reason. I don't know what that's about. He's like a 75% like free throw shooter for his career. Like, I don't get that. So, I mean, man, it's a hard one. I think I would still go with Luka, Trae, Ja, but man, they've all got dog in them. I mean, there's no wrong answer. again, like we said before, the NBA is in good hands, man.
Right. Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, so like what if you put Ja Morant on, let's say, the Magic? Would you be surprised to see him average 35 a game? Because I probably wouldn't. Like, I just think that there's no other surrounding pieces, and he would just have to embrace just being awesome that he is. Like, that's what I'm saying when I talk about like usage rates. Like, sometimes the guys around you aren't going to look as good in the box score, but like Valanciunas is a beast. Like, that dude is good, and they have some role players as well. This is not a knock on Ja. Like the Grizzlies have a pretty quality team, and they're probably one star away from making that next leap. But like, this is like when we talk about super teams and like star-studded teams, like this is what we're talking about. Like, you get a young talent that can lead the way, and Ja is that. And you have a guy like Valanciunas who's already paired with them, and you have a decent set of role players. Like, this team could make a pretty decent jump next year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then my answer is kind of like you. I mean, it's hard to go against Luka. It's really hard to go against Luka, particularly when he's got the size and just the ability, and just the fact that he basically by himself took the Clippers to 7 games. Like, literally by himself. I
don't even know if you should say basically. I don't know if you have to put basically in there.
Yeah, okay.
He did it himself.
Yeah. He by himself he put the he put the Clippers on the ropes. And so yeah, 2 I would probably go Trae. It's almost like a tie for me between Trae and Ja Morant. How crazy is it though that Trae and Luka were traded for each other, like on draft night. Like, talk about a mutually beneficial trade. Like, you really can't go wrong either way there. One last thing in the playoffs. Jared, you wanted to talk about some coaching stuff? Go ahead.
Yeah, so this will kind of transition us into our next topic, but like I said going into the Clippers and Mavericks series, I said Zubac doesn't belong on the floor, and neither does Patrick Beverley. And if you look at the first 2 box scores, or even if you watch the first 2 games of the Clippers and Mavericks series, both of those guys got run. And then Lou kind of like figured it out a little bit later than I did. Not to say that I'm better than Tyrone Lue, who's an NBA coach or anything, but like, this is what I talk about, like when I'm talking about like rotational pieces. And so both of those guys moved to the bench after game 2. And I think Zubac played like 4 or 5 minutes off the bench, not a whole lot. And I don't know if Beverly's seen the court since. I don't think that he has. But, when you're in the playoffs, you got to play your best players. And this is going to go into – I'll kind of save it a little bit for the coaching the aspect of it. But, like, there's just certain things that you see that kind of hurt you in the playoffs. And this is also why I don't like the 76ers. I just think they're running a little bit too deep on their bench, like you can't be running 11, 12 guys on the bench and be competitive when the stars matter right now. So I guess that's my biggest takeaway on the coaching aspect. But when we address the absolute nuts of the coaching aspect, I'll go into a little bit deeper.
Okay. One thing about the 76ers, I don't know about them because, like, to me, if without the jump, and I know you love Ben Simmons, you would love Ben Simmons to be here, and maybe it'd work out here. It's just, I don't know, just Ben Simmons without a jump shot. Yes, he can get to the rim, but I don't know. He doesn't seem like elite to me. He doesn't pop up that way. Chris, what do you got?
Well, I love Ben Simmons on the Timberwolves. Like, I don't know if I fully love him on the Sixers as good of a piece. I mean, if the Sixers had D'Angelo Russell and Michael Beasley and Malik Beasley on the wings, and Cat, so you've got three elite 3-point shooters, then I love me some Ben Simmons. But yeah, if you've got, Green, who's hot and cold, and you've got Maurice Thybulle, and you got Embiid, who can stretch it a little bit, but he's not really a shooter. Like, that's not that's not that same team, like and even Tobias Harris can shoot a little bit, but he's, made his money this year in the mid range and in the post. Like, that's a lot of guys that are all in the paint, So he's the type of player that something that the Timberwolves need to look for. I mean, not at this high of a level usually, but look for a guy that would fit your role and excel in what you want him to do, and he's not excelling in what their team's having him do, so you can get him at a value. Obviously, Ben Simmons, you're not going to get at a value, but I mean, other guys, those are the type of guys you need to target. Yeah, but the thing about the Sixers is they're a throwback, man. They can lock you up on D and beat you up down in the post. And they have just enough shooting to keep you honest. But we'll see. I mean, those Hawks, man, they got a fighting chance, man. They got a puncher's chance for sure. I kind of think game one was just they kind of just tested the waters with the Sixers. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Sixers do now. Who defends who. I'm kind of excited to watch that series.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's so we've spent about a good amount of time talking about the rest of the NBA. There has been a couple things going on with the team that we cover, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So let's get into that first. First, let's talk about the big thing that officially happened with the Timberwolves. They were officially sold to A-Rod and Laurie. But there's nothing apparently in the contract that keeps them from moving the team. And I'll start with you, Jared. Jared, does that worry you at all, or do you think it's just what's your take on the situation right now?
I'm kind of at a peace of mind right now. I don't think this team plans on moving. And the biggest reason why I say I don't think that the team plans on moving is the league wants to expand. So if they were to move, which, there's some dumb clickbait article from NBC Sports Network. I don't remember who the exact author was. It was Dan something.
It was a nobody. That's why you don't remember.
It was a Joe Bag of Donuts from NBC Sports Network that released this article saying A-Rod wants to move the team to Seattle. Well, here's the deal. So say the Timberwolves were to move to Seattle. Then that leaves you one other landing spot that we know about in Las Vegas, likely. That puts you at 31 teams again. The league wants to expand to 32 teams. So, unless you get a team playing in Omaha, I mean, where else are you going to find this other buyer that's just going to build a stadium and dump all this money into it? I mean, maybe it's possible, but, I'm not buying into it. Am I worried? Not really. A-Rod's a minority owner, and Laurie is going to have to make the decisions if he wants to move the team, which we've talked about previously. But, am I worried? No, I mean, I guess a little bit. I guess he's got ties to it, and Seattle wants to have a team, but they're getting an NHL team. They're getting, some of their expansions. I think really the only two landing spots where I see it making sense would be Vegas or Seattle, and then that leaves us at 31 teams, which is an odd number, which the NBA will never do.
Yeah, and one thing, it seems too convenient. You said, whoever the writer of the story, it just seems too easy to write a story. Well, A-Rod spent 8 years or whatever in Seattle. Of course he wants to move the team to Seattle. It's that just seems like too easy. It's not all black and white like that. That's not how everything works.
It's a cop-out clickbait article at this point in time. And he took the easy way out knowing he was going to get some views on the article because people have made those speculations before. But there's so much more into it. And we have a whole video talking about that. If you're listening now and you're interested in seeing our breakdown of why we don't think the team will move, it's on our page, and feel free to go check it out.
Right. It feels like the same thing. Mark Laurie worked for Walmart, and Walmart's based in Arkansas. Could the Wolves move to Little Rock? It feels like
there you go.
Yeah,
it's the lazy way out. As somebody that like me, I casually write sports articles for a different website, and like there's sometimes there's just easy cop out things to do and be lazy. Like sometimes you have to break things down more and be like, okay, well, for instance, like Julio Jones got traded. Like why is that a thing?
Princeton Cycles LLC.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I got. I don't know what happened there, but like, sometimes it's so easy to just take like a cop out answer, you know, and write a story about it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, A-Rod is 45, almost going to be 46 years old. The last time he was in Seattle, and probably the last time he spent a night in Seattle that wasn't in a team uniform from an opposing team, he was 24 years old. I mean, that's 20 plus years ago. This dude doesn't give a damn about Seattle. And you know what? Seattle doesn't give a damn about A-Rod. Like when he left, they hated him. Like he's hated there more than like more than almost anyone's hated like in their teams. Like they hate that guy. So to think that just the fact that he happened to be from there, like get out of here. And the thing about moving that's really the thing that I don't think gets brought up enough, and I brought it up the first time we said this on the purchase, is Lowry and A-Rod, if you take their entire net worth and add it together, it's just about exactly the purchase price of the Timberwolves. They've got, I think, 1.5 billion combined, and that's what they paid, or that's what they're going to end up paying for the Timberwolves, which is why Glenn Taylor's owning it as a majority owner for 2 years, because those guys got to find more people to put in their team. They don't have the money. And the NBA said something like to transfer a team or to get a new expansion team, it's like $1 billion or something like that of a fee. So for guys that are literally, if they sold every car and every pair of socks they have, can just barely cover the price of their thing they're buying, do we think they're going to drop another billion to move them right away? Like, I don't think so. Like, it's just a silly, like you said, clickbait, get everyone excited. But I do like that moving to Arkansas bit. We might have to put that as our next title.
Wolves moving to Arkansas? Yeah. I mean, Arkansas needs a team. I mean, they can't just go Razorbacks the entire time. I mean,
Corliss Williamson.
Yeah, Arkansas Razorbacks have sucked for a while, so they need something, at least football-wise. But Jared, go ahead.
Well, yeah, so like just to add on to what Chris was saying, like we've talked about this, but like there's a stadium buyout. Like I think what the Target Center's lease to 2028. I mean,
no, I think it's like 30. I think it's like 34. I think it's in the 30s.
Yeah, so you're going to look at a $40+ million buyout just from that lease, and then you're going to have to go build a multi-million-dollar stadium on top of it. Like you're just looking at so much extra money that like Chris said, they don't have, you know? So, I mean, like I said, it's a clickbait article, and what is there some steam behind it? I mean, probably not. I mean, Sometimes you get views and you make more money, and that's what this dude did. And like we said, it was some dude nobody's ever heard of. It was Joe Bag of Donuts. I mean, I could have wrote that article. I write articles.
You should just attest it. Just like you should do like an article that says proof that people are moving to Seattle. Sources.
No, Arkansas. Do that, Arkansas.
I said Omaha. I thought Omaha needed a team. You know, like where's this money coming from? Where's these big guys that got all this money sitting in the U.S.? Where are they at?
I will say I have been to Omaha. Not a bad city, but nothing compared to Minneapolis. But if you go to the College World Series, it's actually a fun time. But anyway. But Little Rock, I know nothing about Little Rock. I have heard from a friend some of Arkansas is actually very beautiful. But so let's talk about the team that, like I said, that we do have here that we know for now, which we don't think they're going to move. So what do you guys think? What should the Wolves do to kind of take us to the next level next year? Do you think Do you think they need to do a big move, or is it more just developing the talent that we do have, getting through? I mean, Malik Beasley's prison sentence, which I did see, he just started, so he is now spending his nights in the workhouse or whatever. So, and we'll start with you, Chris. What do you think the Wolves need to do? Is it just development, or do they need to make a splash?
Well, I'm going to go with what I think Rosas is going to do because I think that's what matters. In the sample size of 22 games, when Edwards, D'Lo, and Cat played together, we ranked number 1 in offense and number 29 in defense. Currently, I think it's the Hawks were 8th in offense and like 26th in defense, and they're the 5th or 6th seed. And I think the Trailblazers were like top 5 in offense and in the mid 20s in defense. So like there is a possibility for just an as is Timberwolves team to be, as Jared said, 5, 6, around there in the rankings. But I don't think we're going to stay put. I think we're going to make a move. And I'm just making the assumption that we're not going to get the draft pick, just because that's easy odds to talk with. I personally think Beasley's out the door. I think he's the most expendable option we have, and I think he's the most expendable option that has value, I should say. And the guy that I've completely fallen in love with that I want us to go after, and it's not even close, is Miles Turner. They want to move on from him from the Pacers, and the guy's everything we need. After seeing that Cat actually tries harder and has more energy on defense when he's kind of playing that on the wing and kind of using his width and his wingspan to disrupt stuff, you add the league's leading shot blocker back there, and I mean things are changing. If we could do something like Beasley and Culver for Turner, which works money wise, that adds a young piece to the Pacers, a knockdown shooter. They're not using Turner as a big, so they really don't lose much of anything, and they gain a 20-point per game scorer that they can add next to LeVert and Brogdon and Sabonis. I mean that right there puts you at least right back where you were, if not even a better team. And not only is he a shot blocker, but Turner's like a 35% three-point shooter. So with that roster of D'Lo, Edwards, I would start McDaniels at the 3, which I've been pounding a stump for him to be a 3 the whole year, and then Cat and Turner. You have nobody that shoots under 35% from 3, and you've got 3 guys that are almost 40% three-point shooters. Like, talk about a 5 out. Like, what are you going to do? Like, who are you going to double off to try to stop any of those guys? When Edwards comes downhill, who are you going to drop to try to stop that when everybody around is a knockdown shooter? I mean, I think that's the move. And I think it works because the Pistons or the Pacers want him out, or not even want him out, but just like they realize that's not working for them. And I think it would work. I think it would work great. And if we don't move Beasley for him, we could also move Rubio in like a future first or something, and the money works. And the only reason that I could see the Pacers doing that is next year they're way over the cap no matter what. So that doesn't matter. But the year after that, almost everyone comes off their books, including Rubio at that time, except for Sabonis, LeVert, and Brogdon, which are their 3 main guys anyways. So they'd have their big 3, and they'd have something like $40 or $50 million to play with. So at that point, they can go out and get a star. Hard to get a star in Indiana, but I'm saying I could see a GM be interested in that. I mean, that's the move I make. I think we've got to do something like that. And the other sneaky move, if that doesn't fall through, that I think would be weird, but I would love it in a weird, sick way. would be Porzingis.
Ooh.
I think Dallas is ready to move on for Porzingis. Porzingis is pissed off at Dallas. Porzingis is like it's fun to throw stones at Porzingis right now, but he's like a career 20-10 guy, averaged like 2 blocks most of his career, shoots 35% from three, 7-3. You talk about wingspan. You get him, Cat, McDaniels. I mean, we've got guys that get in. I mean, that would be a nice team too. I don't like his max contract, but we could fit it. If we do something like, I don't know how we'd have to make it work. I mean, we would probably move Beasley and Culver again. I think Beasley, Culver, and Wancho works. So that would give Dallas Luka if they end up keeping Hardaway. So you go Luka, Hardaway, Beasley on the wing. You talk about knockdown shooters for Luka. I mean, that's crazy right there. They've got Wancho if they want a big that can shoot. I mean, he'd be a bench guy, but they've already got Kleber, who's a shot blocking 3-point shooter, and they've got whoever that other big is, that athletic big. I forget his name.
Dwight
Powell. And so those guys are under contract. They could pick up some other big like that. Wouldn't be a terrible move for them either, especially if they're trying to dump 31 million or whatever Porzingis is making. Those would be my two moves. They'd be big splash in the pans, filling the spot of need of big power forwards that can play defense, can shoot the three. And I think either one of those guys in this lineup would put us at a very nice spot in the West. And they're both 25. Like they're both right in the same age bracket we need.
Mm-hmm. Jared, what do you think? Do you still think of the move to make it Simmons, or what do you think?
Well, I guess my quick answer is whether or not we land the pick. We land the pick. Yeah. I'm still in the Simmons bandwagon. However, I will say this about Miles Turner. Miles Turner is a player that I have loved from the beginning of his career up until about 2 years ago. And the reason why I say 2 years ago is because his role has changed so much with that team with the addition of Sabonis. Turner makes a lot of sense. The dude just plays defense. What do I say on this podcast all the time? You give me anybody that's going to play defense, I'm in. Turner plays defense, and he can shoot the three a little bit. Same thing. 100% in on that, especially if we don't land the pick. That's a non-land the pick move. If we land the pick move, we're going to be looking somewhere else where I think I mean, could we take on Turner and Mobley? I mean, maybe, like good Lord, like give me some guys that can play some defense. What did Chris just say? We were number 1 in offense and number 29 in defense with our core three. I mean, give me guys that can play defense. So I'm on board. Porzingis is a player that I have been absolutely in love with since the very beginning of his career. I also love that move, but I don't love the contract and the money behind it, and I think it's just something that doesn't work out. Does it antagonize Dallas to make that move? I mean, maybe. Like Chris said, you get some shooters in there, and good luck. But I love Porzingis. I just don't love the contract, and I don't think it can work financially. It's too much. But it's a player that I've loved, and a player that I would probably admit that I'm willing to admit that I was wrong on. He just hasn't been it lately, and it's been injuries his whole entire career, and that's just a shame because when the dude's 100%, the dude can light it up and he can play defense. Anybody that's going to play defense on the Timberwolves, give them to me. I don't care who. I don't care if it's Allen Iverson at age 45 who never played defense. Give me anybody that's signing up to play defense, I'm on board with. So I love both of those calls. I'm still going to retract Ben Simmons one more time, but this is a if we land the pick move. If the Hawks were to beat the 76ers, you got to admit that those two just ain't working out. You can't be the number 1 seed and all this and that and just not get it done. what the transition would look like to make that pick, I think it would probably be Rubio, Beasley, Culver, and the pick, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a GM expert, but something like that to get Ben Simmons. I mean, you know what Ben Simmons does? He plays defense. You know what I want? A guy that plays defense. So I'm on board with any one of those three moves.
Absolutely. Chris, go ahead.
And the thing about Turner and Simmons that I love is they know what they do, and they do that very well, and they don't do things that they don't do well. Like, you don't see Turner breaking guys off the dribble and trying to, like, you don't see him on Shaq and the Fool trying to do stuff he can't do. He's going to protect the rim. He's going to set a screen. He's going to fade. He's going to fade to the 3-point line. He's more athletic than people think. So at first, I was super anti get a big next to Cat because I thought Cat can only play center. I didn't think he could be mobile enough to defend in space, and he proved me wrong. I mean, he's not great at it, but he's as good as he has as a rim protector, so he's fine, and he seems to like it, which is more important on defense or on anything. Is if you like doing something, you're going to work hard at it. So he seems to like doing that. And I watched a lot of tape recently on Turner, just isolating on him, and he can move. Like, this guy can easily move with, a guard, or switch onto a guard on a pick and roll a little bit, move with the power forward. He's pretty agile. Now he's injured, and he's supposed to be healthy right about the time the season starts or preseason starts. So there's a little risk there, but I would take that. But he's making $18 million a year, so that's a nice contract to take on. That's a one thing over Simmons. Is Simmons is making 35 or whatever. That gets a little sticky. But again, Simmons can be a secondary ball handler. Simmons can do. I mean, he's literally the defensive player of the year type guy every year. So I think we got to do something like that. But if we get Evan Mobley, maybe we won't do either one of them. Maybe we'll just, I don't know. Well, I mean, we're bringing Bolmaro in, which I want to talk about in a little bit. And I don't think it would be terrible to have Rubio here with Bolmaro either. So, maybe we won't trade Rubio. I don't know. But I'm excited for this offseason, man. This is my time of year.
One last thing I'll say about Turner is he's kind of been blackballed by the Pacers. Like, his minutes are trending down. The dude's young. Like there's no reason for that to happen other than the fact that Sabonis is just extremely good. So that whole Turner trade aspect makes a ton of sense for both teams. So I'm proud of you, Chris, with your GM mind. You did good on this one.
Mm-hmm. He's 24, by the way. Dude, he's still a baby. But that's the thing with him and Porzingis. They're both injury prone. Injury prone is a tough thing. They've both been injured multiple times. Like, there's been guys like Curry who were injury prone in the beginning of his year, and everyone thought it was going to be a career, going to be a thing. And then he was healthy almost his whole career. So, you just got to hope they stay healthy. I mean, that's all you can do on these kind of things. You make the move, and you hope that health comes with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And let's go, Chris, you mentioned it. Let's go right into Bolmaro. He's coming over this coming year. So how do you think he fits in? We'll start with you, Chris. How do you think he fits in to Rosas's plan?
So we talked about Bolmaro a little bit, I think, the last podcast. And the thing about him is, who knows? Like, I don't really know. What I've watched has been like highlights and clips and stuff like that. So I kind of only go back to what people that I trust that have watched more say. And there's people that watch him and what he's been doing lately in the Super League or whatever. And they're saying dude's a stud. They're saying he is looking phenomenal. And not only, he just recently got the most spectacular player of the year award, which usually goes to like the flashiest player. Like Rubio got it, I think. Like, a guy that's got that little bit of spark. This dude has it, and he's like 6'7". He's got good size. The people that I've been hearing from, and I would love to name drop them, but I forget their names. I just see them on my limited Twitter feed, and they're saying this guy's going to step in and be like a contributor, like a high level reserve right away. Like they're not saying like he's a third point guard type guy. They're saying expect him to be like, you know, our sixth man type guy or seventh man type guy. And if he can come in and give us that kind of, I mean, that raises our floor dramatically. So instead of having like I don't even know, like instead of having like Wancho come off the bench or even like, I mean, just a better comparable player that plays D and can move the ball and just contributes. I'm excited for it. I just don't know. That makes me think we're going to keep Rubio more now because now we've got the Anthony Edwards connection. We've got this Bolmaro coming over who, speaks his language and kind of has the same flair, same, size and same, kind of style of play. I'm excited for the kid. That's all I know. I'm just excited for him. And everybody that I hear talking about him says that he's going to be kind of the real deal. Like, don't expect him to be an all-star, but he's going to be a contributor and like a solid piece.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Jared, anything to add?
Yeah, you know what I know about Bolmaro? Not a damn thing, but I'm gonna make a comparison and you can tell me because you probably watched a little bit more film than I have on him, Chris.
Yeah.
Does he remind you kind of like of a Denny Avicii from the Wizards? Is that a fair comparison, or are they different in their games?
So similar, except he's like sprier. He's faster. I would say almost more like do you remember Rudy Fernandez?
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like a guy like that that's just flying around. He's like, when I watch this guy, he's like, man, he's like JJ Barea type, but like 6'7". Like the dude's like cutting under. Like if a guy goes for a pass, like he'll undercut it. Like he'll jump the passing lanes. Like he's all over. Like you can't pick him. He gets through everything. He's just nonstop energy and hustle, and picking guys' pockets, and he's gonna be fun. Like I don't know how it's gonna translate, but with this summer league, I hope he's overplaying in that summer league. And it might be a really fun team because we're talking about playing like McDaniels in our summer league. We're talking about Nas playing in the summer league. I heard Culver's going to play. We might have like the all summer team roster,
Yeah, that one year we went to the finals and lost to the Bulls. So,
right.
Yeah.
Was that Foy's year when Foy was the summer league MVP?
No, I think that was more recent than that.
Oh yeah, because they didn't have finals and stuff back then.
Yeah. I forget what year. Was it? Could have been Levine, maybe years. I don't know. But I know we went to the finals one year. No, it was Tyus was on the team. I guarantee it.
Okay.
I remember that full yellow. So that's kind of a time
So
slot.
that would have been Cat. That would have been Cat and Tyus.
I think so. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So one last thing we got to get to a former Minnesota Timberwolves coach, and I know you guys have mixed opinions on him. Tom Thibodeau wins Coach of the Year. Do you think that he was deserving, or should it have gone to someone else? What do you think, Jared?
My pick would have been Quinn Snyder. I just think that what he's doing in Utah, like when you look at that Utah roster, like, okay, they got Mitchell, he's their star, but like outside of that, like Gobert's like kind of on the edge of being like a star, I guess. But like I wouldn't put him in star category, but like they just have a lot of role players who know their roles, and that comes down to coaching. So Quinn Snyder would have been my pick. I mean, the West has been so stacked all year, and it's kind of actually breaking down into being a lot less. Like if I had to place a bet tomorrow in Vegas, my first bet would be that whoever wins the Eastern Conference wins the finals, because I just think the Eastern Conference is that much better right now, which has been so weird to say because like for years it's been the West, but like I just feel like at the top the West is a lot weaker than it's ever been. But what Quinn Snyder's done with that team, like just year after year being a solid coach, I think he's the best coach in the NBA. And he doesn't have a world of talent. He's got some, but he's established the role players to know what their roles are. So is Thibs deserving? I mean, I could make an argument that he deserved to win it. The Knicks went from real bad to making the playoffs, and then they got embarrassed in the first round. And just one last thing on the Knicks, like they could be a buyer for Damian Lillard now because of because of Tibbs getting them to the playoffs and believing in their roster, and that's a big thing in a big market like that. I would give it to Quinn Snyder, but I still think that Tibbs is semi-deserving of it.
Okay, what do you think, Chris?
I'm biased because I hate Tibbs. I think he does everything wrong, and I think he's done everything wrong for the Knicks. I'll get into that in a second. I mean, Quinn, it comes down to like when people say, well, who do you think the MVP is? And to me, the MVP for the last 7 years should have been LeBron James because he's the best player. Maybe not this year, but still maybe if he was healthy. So does it go to the best coach or does it go to the coach that's, moved the wins the most? I mean, like we're talking about Quinn Snyder, they only got 15, 16 more wins, but it's a lot harder to get 15 wins when you already have 40 than to get, a 30 wins increase when you start at 20. It's not, you just can't go number for number. Monty Williams, that's who I probably would have went to because he's a combination of both. He's put it all together. He's made that Suns team believe. He brought in a new point guard and talked his star into kind of almost taking a backseat role. Like Booker's role numbers are down through, over the board. And they're dominant. They crushed this year, and they went from non-playoffs to beating the champs, and they're making a run. I know the voting's pre-playoffs, which I think is dumb too. But Tibbs, no. So here's the deal with Tibbs. Here's why I hate him getting it, because I don't think it's that hard in the NBA, especially with all the back-to-backs and stuff we had this year, to win like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday basketball games. When you're playing midweek and a lot of teams kind of half coast and stuff like that, if you've got a team that plays hard every game, and you're burning your players out, you got your best players playing 40 minutes a game, you're sitting all your young players and your rookies, so they're not developing, and you're playing only journeyman vets that know how to play basketball. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of these, I'll call them meaningless regular season wins by playing hard defense and by just playing iso ball, giving it to your best player like you did with Jimmy Butler here. ISO ball at the top. Let that guy do whatever he can, either score or kick it to some guy for a shot. That's not beautiful. That's not, you're not breaking any basketball records with that ingenious play call. Like that's basic level stuff. It's just when you're full of veterans that are hungry, you're going to win a lot of regular season games. And I don't care about that. Like that hurts your franchise because now they're going to be, drafting 25th when their roster, if they played their rookies like most teams would, if they played Obi Toppin more than 10 minutes, if they started quickly, which he should have been, if they played Knox to really figure out what they have in him, maybe he's a dud, maybe not. If they played that other big point guard that actually shot pretty well this year. That was his big knock, Nikaruma or whatever. Ntilikina, right. You play these guys, you lose a bunch of games, you draft a top 5 guy, now you've got Randall, you've got, maybe Obi Toppin, which I hated that pick, but still you got to give him a shot. Like you've got guys that you can build on and build this franchise moving forward. You're losing all these old guys anyways in free agency. So now you've got this money and you could bring in a free agent, and now you've got a team that's young and you can build and move forward. They don't have that now. They're not going to have that top 5 pick. They're going to have a team that looks like they're going to always be a 7 or 8 seed, and they're going to get knocked out, and they're never going to have enough draft picks to move up. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's bad basketball. GM wise, franchise building wise. And I think it's like a bait and switch, like for the coach. Like, yeah, you can win a lot of games with journeyman veterans, but is that the goal? Like, no. Once you get to the playoffs, everyone plays hard and everyone plays hard D. So when you were the only one doing that in the regular season, you got those wins. But in the playoffs, when everyone's playing hard, that advantage is lost and you get swept damn near.
Absolutely. Yep, that's a good point. Jared, you got some?
Yeah, so just moving on with what Chris was saying about the Knicks. So, like, they started Alfred Payton almost all season long, and he played like 20 minutes, and then they would hand it over to Rose. So it was almost like a Band-Aid piece on, like, okay, Rose is going to be our starting point guard, which they did in the playoffs, but, like, they Band-Aid pieced that all season long, and then he didn't play in the playoffs, like, at all. Like, he played the first game, and then they benched him, and Rose played like 35 minutes a game and started. So, like what Chris is saying is, like, does it make sense to do that, like, long term? No, but, like, if they won enough games to draw a trade piece to where they could land another superstar like Damian Lillard, I mean, you give Damian Lillard and Julius Randle to Thibs, who's going to play him 40 minutes a game. I mean, maybe it works out, but, like, it just sets you so far back, like, in the development of any players. Like, if I was a rookie, the last coach I would want to play for is Thibodeau, because he's going to ruin my career. I'm not going to have a career because I'm never going to develop. My second point is a pretty big one, and it's something I've stood by all of 2021, and I've been saying it almost daily, and it is coaches do not matter. They don't matter at all. Look at Mike Budenholzer, and he won Coach of the Year twice. They got embarrassed without a healthy Nets team. Like, coaches just don't matter. And I hate to say that because I'm excited about our coach. I love what Finch is doing here, but, like, sometimes they matter and sometimes they don't. But as a whole, they don't matter. You know who matters? The players. The players decide the games. The best players on the court always seem to win. And when it comes to coaching, you look at a guy like Tyronn Lue, who was gifted championships by LeBron. Do I think Tyronn Lue's a good coach? No, I think he's below average at best. But now he's got us a decent lineup, and it took him 2 games to make changes in the lineup that I said before the series started. Like, anybody can be an NBA coach. It doesn't take a whole lot. Does it take a lot to be an elite coach, to be a top 5? Yeah, probably. But, like, as a whole, the players decide the games, and coaches do not matter.
Chris, go ahead.
I agree with 70% of that. No, I agree with 80% of that, because that's how much of the league I agree with that with. If you have a player like LeBron, if you have a player like Lillard, if you have a player like, well, even Julius Randle or Jimmy Butler, and you can win games and titles by playing ISO. I mean, that's all they do. That's all LeBron does. They play ISO or pick and roll. That's not hard to figure out. But if you have a roster like the Timberwolves, or you have a roster like the Jazz, or you have a roster like the Suns before they really blew up, or even still the Suns now, like, you need ball movement. Like, you need a coach that knows what he's doing. And there's not many teams that do that, because unfortunately these superstars, even like in OKC when they had Westbrook and Kevin Durant, it was ISO one guy. If that doesn't work, ISO the other guy. If that doesn't work, pick and roll. Like, it's just really elementary, like AAU style basketball. That bothers me. That's ugly basketball to me. But that's winning basketball right now, because, like you said, talent wins. So if you can amass talent, yes, I don't think coaching matters at all, really. Because these players are so talented that they can adjust on the fly before you can figure it out. Like, they'll be making, adjustments while the play's going that the coach can't help with. But if you don't have that top 5, 6, 7 talent, I think coaching does matter. We'll see. I think Finch is going to put us in a good spot. And who knows, maybe Cat or Edwards will develop into one of those talents. And that's what I always wanted out of LeBron. I always wanted him to play for a coach that knew how to coach. He's played for Mike Brown He's played for Ty Lue. He's played for the Euro dude that he got fired for Ty Lue, which I think that Euro dude was probably his best coach, but didn't like him because he was making LeBron not just ISO every time. So LeBron didn't like that. I get it. None of these stars. It's like your kid. If you gave your kid candy for dinner for 3 weeks straight, and then you're like, okay, now we're gonna go back to vegetables. They're gonna throw a fit because they're like, no, I'm used to that candy. I want that candy.
Mhm.
That's LeBron ISO at the top. That's KD ISO at the top. That's Kyrie Irving ISO at the top. That's it's Harden. I just named three guys on the same team. That's crazy. Um, like that's what those guys do. I don't want that with the Timberwolves. I hope we don't turn into that. But yeah, coaching isn't that big of a deal. But we've seen, well, coaching doesn't win you, but coaching can lose you. That's the thing. Like right now in Milwaukee, that first game, he said he didn't want to play anybody over 35 minutes because he wanted them to be fresh. It's not time for being fresh anymore, my man. Like you lost by a handful of points while a two-time MVP was resting, 13 minutes, 14 minutes a game. Come on, dude. You got to go for the throat. So I think coaches can definitely lose you. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that note, we'll put a pin on it because we're kind of running a little late here. But it was a fun one. Good to talk about the playoffs. Good to chat about what's going on in the NBA. Chris, thanks so much for joining us this week.
I'm excited for Anthony Edwards to win that Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Jared, thanks for being here as always.
Absolutely. Just parting ways. Coaching don't matter, but Finch is going to lead us to the promised land, and you better believe that.
That's right. He's the only coach that matters.
Exactly. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. And as always, go Wolves.